and welcome to GameSack. Now in the past we've covered the TurboGrafx 16 shoot-'em-ups as well as the ones on the Super Nintendo, but now it's time to give the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive its glory and cover all of the shoot-'em-ups on that system.
That's exactly right, Joe.
Dude, I totally knew you were going to say that.
Well, of course I'm going to say that. How can I disagree with the show's subject, even though it's already been established?
Well, I guess you have a point there, Dave.
That's exactly right, Joe. I do. And like you said, we're going to take a look at every shooter on the system.
Yeah, so let's get started.
Super Fantasy Zone has got to be one of the best simple shooters available. What's interesting is that there is no beginning or ending to any stage in this game. You can loop the stage left or right forever if you so choose. But if you want to get anywhere in this game, you must complete 2 simple objectives.
Yeah, like destroying all the enemy bases in each stage. You'll know how many bases are left by the map at the bottom of the screen.
Secondly, you must defeat the boss of the stage. We talked about Fantasy Zone and its conversions way back in episode 19, but this version is a proper 16-bit sequel and the only version of this game. It's unbelievably colorful and fun to play. The music is just as colorful and a great soundtrack all on its own. My only complaint with this game, as with previous Fantasy Zone games, is the weapon system. Once you earn enough coins from killing enemies, you can buy weapons in the shop that appears. The problem is that the weapons are on a time limit, and the next time you purchase them, the price goes up. It makes it really tough. Those are my complaints, and they are legitimate, but they are not enough to keep me from playing this wonderful game. You should play it too.
This isn't the only 16-bit love that Fantasy Zone got. There's an unlicensed game from China called Adventurous Boy that plays exactly like Fantasy Zone. You shoot down the bases, collect stars instead of coins, and buy stuff from the shop and fight bosses.
I might actually be tempted to buy this one if the graphics weren't so choppy. And the music is nowhere near Fantasy Zone level either.
Very true, but the game is worth mentioning as most people have never even heard of this game, much less seen it in action. It's an interesting attempt, but it really needed more polish before it was released. And of course, we can't forget about Arnold Palmer Tournament Golf.
Wait, what? That's not a shooter.
I know, but it does have a 16-bit version of Fantasy Zone built in if you hit the ball 99 times on a single hole and then punch in the Konami code on the game over screen. Then you're left playing a version of Fantasy Zone that was programmed by Arnold Palmer himself until you reset the game. There's only one stage and it can be kind of tough to blow up both bases, and if you win, you still get a game over. Gyres is an interesting shooter by Telenet.
I don't think it's pronounced like that, Joe. I think it's called Gyres.
No way, it's Gyres.
Gyres.
Well, actually, according to this magazine ad by Renovation, it's pronounced Gyres.
No way. Sounds like Toys R Us or Babies R Us or something.
You know, I agree. That's probably why they're no longer in business.
No, I think this guy is why they're no longer in business. I'm pretty sure he was their CEO.
No, he was just a professional gamer that really liked Gyres. And I agree with him. This game is amazing. It breaks the stereotypical mold of a horizontal shooter with the TAS system. That's a device which lets you steal an enemy's weapon type. You throw this thing at an enemy and suddenly you have a version of their firepower. Do it again and again to power that weapon up. It's a great concept that really works well for this game.
Well, it would if the other enemies would let you alone a bit so you could power up your ship.
Of course, there are a bunch of different enemies and therefore a bunch of different weapons you can have as well. Other than that, it plays by most of the same rules that other horizontal shoot-'em-ups do. And it plays really well. Sometimes the game even gives you multiple paths to choose from. They both will end up in the same location eventually, but it's still pretty cool and adds a bit of replayability to an already replayable game. I remember back in the day purchasing the Japanese version of this game from a local game store when it came out. I'm glad I did because the box cover is way better than the US box, which is disappointing to say the least.
Oh, why does this guy like Gary so much?
This game has really well done graphics thanks to its amazing 8 mega power. These guys really know how to get the most out of the Genesis color palette. Most of the music is really awesome as well, and it really makes me want to keep playing. That's a good thing too, as this game is quite challenging. It'll take a lot of practice to get through this one, but it can be done. This game is a definite must-own for everybody.
Troubleshooter is a game that I really enjoyed. One of the reasons I enjoyed it is because it's not a space shooter. The market for space shooters in the 16-bit era was way oversaturated and needed a game like this. so the gameplay is as typical as it gets.
What? No, it isn't. It's kind of like Forgotten Worlds, but starring two women. Or maybe like Scat on the NES, only starring two women instead.
Yeah, typical. At the beginning of the stage, you can pick the type of special weapon you want. I found most of them to be pretty bad except for the Blizzard, which seemed to be the best. Every time you use your special, a meter builds up allowing you to use it again. I like this as you don't have to be as frugal with supers as in other games.
I like how the ships that carry the power-ups look like the ship from Whip Rush. And when you beat a stage, some music plays. Wait a minute, that's the same music that plays when you clear a stage in Decap Attack. It makes sense though, as Vic Tokai, who made this game, also programmed Whip Rush and Decap Attack.
There were a few occasions where I felt the game was being cheap, but I learned from my mistakes. The music for this game is really good and has a few outstanding tracks.
I really like the music too, but personally I think the percussion is a bit too loud.
If you're sick of deep space, this is a nice alternative.
And so is a sequel called Battle Mania 2, sometimes referred to as Troubleshooter Vintage. Unfortunately, Vic Tokai never released this one over here, and it's a shame. The gameplay remains just like Troubleshooter, but with different weapons and crazy new stages. You start stage 1 flying solo, but you're saved at the very last moment when Crystal finally joins you. Then the duo is back working together again. Even the first stage boss from the original game makes a cameo. The graphics have been given a definite boost in quality.
Yeah, everything is looking real good here.
And the music has also been substantially improved. It's really too bad that this game was never localized. The game usually goes for around $200 and you know, it just might be worth it. Fire Shark is often claimed to be one of the best plane shoot-'em-ups ever.
You're joking, right?
I'm not. A lot of people really love the hell out of this game. It is pretty fun for the most part. Just by looking at it, you might think this game would be pretty slow, but no, it actually really keeps you on your toes. You fly a red plane which can only go north and can collect 3 different types of weapons. Overall, there's really nothing special about the gameplay to talk about. The difficulty in the gameplay is about what you'd expect from a Toaplan game.
It feels way too much like a 1940X series game with elements of writing.
Anyway, the graphics are a bit above average and some humorous details are in there, like your friend who can't quite take off in time. Oops. But what I think one of the biggest draws to this game are the weapons when they're fully powered up. The green weapon looks kinda cool, but it's pretty narrow. The blue weapon looks like it could be straight out of Raiden. But power up the red fire weapon all the way and oh my god, this thing is intense. It sweeps all over the screen. Most enemies don't even get a chance to fire at you before they die. Seriously, they might as well just give up and go home.
It is a fun game for sure, but I don't think it's the best. It just doesn't feel unique enough to me, but it's worth a go if you like Toaplan style shooters. Wow, Joe, there's nearly 80 shooters on this system, and how many have we covered so far?
Let's see, 6 I think. Oh wait, no, 7. We covered 7.
Oh, good, because, you know, gosh, I thought we weren't getting anywhere. But we are making progress, I guess.
Yeah, so let's get back to it.
Ouiser War is a mid-range shooter. It's neither super great, but it's not super bad by any measure.
What are you talking about? I love this game.
Oh, I'm very happy for you. Yeah, it's a decent game with long levels and interesting enemies. It's pretty basic in terms of weaponry. You have one type of shot that can be powered up to cover most of the screen. You also have several types of magic that you can pick up and use throughout the game. There's a couple of really cool screen effects here and there, and there's some decent backgrounds which really help with the atmosphere.
I love the enemy designs in this game. Everything has this creepy looking, grotesque vibe to it. I love the stage where it looks like you're inside of some giant enemy's stomach.
The music is fine for the game, but I don't think it's that great.
Well, I think it really fits the game, which has a mythological feel overall, kinda. It really gets me pumped and sounds good.
Well, at least it's another great alternative to a space shooter.
Android Assault is one of the few shooters for the Sega CD. It's originally called Bar Yarm in Japan, and they didn't even seem to bother to change the title screen. Oh well, I like the name Bar Yarm better anyway.
I agree. Android Assault may cause people to think that this has something to do with Black Hole Assault, and, you know, that wouldn't be good.
No. The game starts you off in a big earthy environment where you can go up and down and all around. You can collect a few different weapons, and once you get powered up enough, you transform into a mech. This is cool because it'll let you take a hit without dying. It's certainly not the hardest game in the world, but it's definitely worth playing. The graphics are pretty good for the most part. The music, however, rocks. Nobuhiro Makino did a great job on it, and it's definitely worth listening to outside of the game. I really wish the Sega CD had more shoot-'em-ups on it. Definitely worth having if you own a Sega CD. Thundercracker. Eliminate Down is one of the more expensive shooters on the system. It never came to the US, of course. It's a horizontal shooter, as you can see, and you can select from 3 different types of weapons at any given time. One of the first things I've noticed about this game is how smooth the controls feel. The programming in this area was really well done.
It sure was, and that's why it makes me feel like I'm a total retard. The game is damn near impossible for me, I tell you. I might as well not even bother plugging in the controller.
Yeah, the game can be quite tough, so you'll get a lot of gameplay out of this one. It's a good thing too, as these days this one can go for anywhere between $500 and $700.
No problem. I'm sure the bank won't mind me missing a car payment or two.
Well, I guess when you look at it that way, you probably don't get as much gameplay for your money as I previously implied. But what else do you get for your money? Well, you get some nicely done graphics and some cool bosses. One thing that keeps this game from being a favorite is the sound and music. It's almost a necessity for shooters to have awesome music. It just goes hand in hand with the genre, and this one is a letdown in that area. But otherwise, it's a fairly solid game.
Sugaya, otherwise known as Darius 2, has some really good ideas, I thought. What makes this game great, and all Darius games for that matter, is the way that the stages are laid out. After defeating a stage, you can choose to go to one of 2 ways. This keeps going on, branching for a total of 28 stages. Of course, you can only play 7 stages per playthrough, but that makes replayability higher than any other game out there. So it's got that going for it, and also another idea that I personally like is fish. I always loved fighting huge ships that look like fish. Don't ask why, because I don't even know myself. All I know is that I like it, and it's unique to almost any other shooter out there.
It is, but I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of this game. After I play it, I have no desire to continue or start over or any of that. The music is fairly good, but the sound effects kind of suck.
Well, I think it's a great game with some decent music that should be in anybody's collection.
The original arcade version was 3 screens wide. It was insane. And although the graphics here aren't quite as good, the Genesis version is still more enjoyable than the arcade version in my opinion. The PC Engine CD version, which is called Super Darius 2, is even more enjoyable than that. There's even a Master System version of Sugaya that I didn't particularly care for, but I was kind of impressed with the scrolling at the time. Slapfight MD by Tengen is a port of the arcade game Slapfight for the Mega Drive. You collect little stars and they advance the weapon selection on the right. When you get to the power-up you want, you select it, just like Gradius.
Well, it is a good formula to imitate.
It is. The game looks and sounds pretty basic, but it's fairly fun to play. There's an arranged option for the music. Let's try that. Not bad, not bad. It sounds a little better for sure. The real draw on this game is the all-new special version. It even has special music by Yuzo Koshiro. The game has been totally remade and rethought, though it basically plays the same. The graphics have been improved, and Yuzo even made sure that the music was similar to a Gradius game.
Similar? It's closer than similar, Joe. I can't believe Konami didn't sue because of all the similarities.
The game is still pretty tough though. I found that constantly collecting the wing power-up helps me to live longer, as the wings not only add more firepower, but they can usually take an extra enemy shot from me so that I don't die. The decent graphics and the great music make this game a desired part of any shooter fan's collection. But unfortunately, the game usually runs for well over $200, so good luck picking this one up.
5 shots.
We can't do a special on Genesis shooters without mentioning the Thunder Force series. We originally talked about this series in depth along with Cotton back in episode number 28, but we've got to mention them here. Thunder Force 2 was the first standalone game that I ever purchased for my Genesis, and I'm really glad I did. It features overhead levels that let you fly around anywhere, as well as side-scrolling levels. You know, I don't care what other people say, I love the overhead levels. But then again, I love the side-scrolling ones too. The graphics are pretty good for their time and the music is fantastic. Then Thunder Force 3 came along and ditched the overhead levels and gave everything else a hefty overhaul. The game is incredibly easy, but it's also extremely fun. The graphics are great and the music is some of the best from a 90s video game. I try to play through this entire game at least once a year. Finally, we got Thunder Force 4, known in the US as Lightning Force. Wow, they really sure increased the difficulty on this one. It's not impossible though. The graphics feature some insane parallax scrolling and some really rockin' music. If you like the Thunder Force series, you really owe it to yourself to check out episode 28. There we talk about Thunder Force 1, 5, 6, and even all of the offshoots. Technosoft really knew how to make a great shooter.
So that's it, Joe. We're done, right? We can finally talk about Nintendo?
No, Dave. We still have 65 more games to go.
Oh my God. Please tell me you're going to cheat and show those in a montage.
Well, yeah, pretty much. But I'm also going to show the ones where you fly into the screen as well, just to make sure we cover all of our bases.
That's a good idea. And, you know, let's roll the audio, too, because I like to hear that stuff.
Okay, cool. Let's go. Alright, first off we have Heavy Unit, and eventually lets you transform into a mech, but otherwise it's fairly frustrating. Master of Weapon isn't much fun, and it has some really nasty sound effects. Elemental Master is tough but fun and features some amazing music. Darwin 4081 features an evolving ship, but is otherwise pretty generic. Curse is choppy, but there's something about it that draws me in. Space Turtle Ship is an unlicensed game that excels in its mediocrity, if that's even possible. Musha is a fantastic overhead shooter that we've talked about before. Lots of fun to be had here. The sequel, Robo Elise Celeste, is also really fun with some great CD music. Glaylancer is a great game which definitely deserved a wider audience outside of Japan. Forgotten Worlds is a good two-player adaptation of the arcade. It's an early game, but still fun. Lords of Thunder is a lackluster port of the Turbo Duo version. Twin Cobra is another toe plan shooter, but this one is average at best. Twin Hawk is pretty good though. It won't blow you away or anything, but it is fairly enjoyable. Vapor Trail is a decent overhead shooter with some great music. Viewpoint is an isometric shooter hastily ported over from the Neo Geo. Well, we all know about Zero Wing's infamous English intro, but it's actually a really cool game with some nice music. Gadget Twins is a crappy little shooter where you punch things. Phelios is a cool mythological game where you fly on the back of a horse.
I like this idea.
Insector X has you killing bugs. It's definitely better than the arcade version. Colibri also has you killing bugs. It's the best hummingbird-based shooter for the 32X. You know, I thought Fire Mustang was cool when it first came out, but in reality it's fairly mediocre. Soul Feast, also known as Soul Dees on cartridge, is a fairly competent shooter with some cool tunes. Battle Squadron features some pretty cool invisible stealth ships, see it? Other than that, it pretty much sucks. Airbuster is a good game. It's also known as Aeroblasters. The TurboGrafx 16 version has slightly superior gameplay though. Steel Empire is really cool. You control a blimp and the game has some great music. Grindstormer is a flashy overhead shooter, but I always thought the graphics looked kinda chunky. Aeroflash is an early game and it's really average. Crossfire is 50% shooter, 50% run and gun, 100% rare, and overall kind of underwhelming. Undeadline is a very pricey running shooter similar to Elemental Master, only much more difficult and rare. Xenon 2 is very insulting for a 16-bit game, seriously. Biohazard Battle is pretty unique in that it lets you play as weird creatures. Some good music here in Stage 2. Divine Ceiling is a really crappy shooter that shows glimpses of cartoon porn between the levels. Mega Swiv is the Mega Drive version of Firepower 2000, only worse in every respect. Sylphied on the Sega CD plays at an isometric view and has cool backgrounds. It's pretty fun. Veritex is fairly decent. Nothing really to complain about here, but the music is fantastic. Bioship Paladin is a horribly slow and choppy game. It even has a crosshair. Dangerous Seed is a touch above average, I suppose. It's got some good music here and there. Truxton is the epitome of a Toplan game. It's really frustrating for me. This version is good, but the PC Engine version is better. KO Flying Squadron is a great shooter, but perhaps a touch overrated. Magic Girl is another unlicensed game. There's nothing magical about this turd. Raiden Trad is a watered-down version of Raiden. Not bad, really, but it looks kinda washed out. XDR's graphics remind me of the Genesis game called Shadow Blasters. It's rather weak, but you know, it's kinda fun.
Commence operation!
Task Force Harrier EX is an easy game with some great voice quality. I like it. Unlicensed games don't get much more generic than The Earth Defend. This is very boring. I kinda have a soft spot for Whip Rush. I really like the music and the game gives you a good challenge. I never really cared too much for Hellfire though. I just don't like the weapons your ship has. Zaxxon's Mother Base 2000 for the 32X is another isometric shooter like Viewpoint, only more crappy. You know, I'm not sure if Gunstar Heroes counts, but it has a shooter section for whatever reason. So does Batman. This one's really fun though, even though your ship is huge. Let's not forget the adventures of Batman and Robin. This stage takes forever though. I could never really get the hang of playing Subterranea. I don't like playing it at all, really. I guess these levels in Red Zone qualify, but you can tell that graphic effects took priority over gameplay. I always get kind of bored playing Atomic Robo Kid. There's just really nothing special here. Space Invaders 91 is, well, Space Invaders. They did add some decent music though. Burning Force is kinda cool. I like the floor effects and some of the music is nice. Afterburner 2 on the Genesis was okay. The 32X version totally rocked. The Sega CD version kinda sucked. Space Harrier was also great on the 32X. Space Harrier 2 was less impressive, but still fun. Star Wars Arcade is really tough and not tremendously fun. Panorama Cotton is a pricey game and it's very enjoyable and it has some great music. I guess Bimini Run counts as one of those into the screen third person type shooters. Not really a whole lot of excitement going on with this one. I've never been too fond of Galaxy Force on any platform. Galaxy Force 2 here is not very fun either. Shadow Squadron for the 32X is pretty cool with some great music. You know, I'm pretty sure Sega had an intern program Super Thunderblade for them. Night Striker runs at less than a quarter screen resolution. It must take place in the LEGO universe or something. It plays okay, I guess. Dark Zide is a rather boring game, kind of like a 3D Asteroids, I suppose. And finally, Soulstar really shows off what the Sega CD can do. I just wish the gameplay were as exciting as the graphics.
Wow, Joe, that was a lot of games. But you know what? I noticed you forgot Thunderbolt 2, you incompetent fool.
Oh, come on, Dave. Come on. I mean, that one's a very hard game to get a hold of. I mean, it's actually an unlicensed game from China. You can actually see it running if you look behind us.
Well, we should probably get out of the way then, I think.
I'll move a little bit, but not too much. I'm kind of lazy, you know.
Yeah, they've seen enough.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching our Genesis Shoot 'em Up Extravaganza, and we'll catch you next time.
Oh, ouch. Oh, that hurts. That got me right in the fanboy. I can't do another Genesis episode. I gotta watch some TV. Calm down.
Breaking news. The Sega Genesis wins the 16-bit wars.
What? That can't be right.
Only Sega games will be released from now on forever.
I don't believe that.
Nintendo is now Sega's bitch.
It's just a dream.